Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about how it looks like the Zelda 40th Anniversary Nintendo Direct leaks are continuing. We've been talking about 40th Anniversary leaks for a little while already. We've been seeing imagery, we've been seeing logos, and now we're seeing even more of that stuff. There looks to be an indication of something else that we have not seen that could be announced in this Anniversary Direct. We are getting speculation and different hints that Nintendo's going to be ramping up with their promotion for Zelda's 40th Anniversary, and some think that a 40th Anniversary Direct could be happening sooner than expected. So we're going to be diving into all of that and what I think today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you find yourselves enjoying my videos, and if you haven't subscribed already, to please subscribe. So just to make sure everyone's up to speed here, there has not been a 40th Anniversary Nintendo Direct announced for the Zelda series yet, not officially. However, we are seeing more and more signs to suggest that Nintendo, in an official capacity, looks to be celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary in a pretty big way, and the way things are getting out about this, it seems like they're going to be celebrating this in a bigger way than they did for the 35th, the 30th, or the 25th, and that's pretty exciting. And it does seem to line up with a lot of things we've been talking about over the last few years, how Nintendo looks to be continually pushing with their cross-promotion, taking advantage of the movies, the parks, the merchandising, and comboing that with different game releases leading up to even bigger game releases and such. Like, we look at Donkey Kong Bonanza, we had Donkey Kong Country Returns HD come out, we had the opening of the Universal Park with the Donkey Kong expansion, and then we had Donkey Kong Bonanza. Or you look at what Nintendo recently did with Mario's 40th anniversary, how they had a big Nintendo Direct last September, and half of that presentation was all about Mario's 40th anniversary, where they announced several games and showed off the movie, and that was all promoted and talked about and coming out for a few different months, and they even had a surprise one with Star Fox to come out a little bit after the movie. And so the thought has been that Nintendo might be doing something similar again. Nintendo has seen the success they can have with the movies and all the cross-promotion, and they literally just did this with Mario in a very big way. Nintendo might be trying to emulate this, especially with the live-action Zelda movie coming out late April next year, and also the Ocarina of Time remake coming out this year. The movie and this game appear to be the centerpieces, but it also looks like there's going to be a lot of other stuff surrounding it to really push the 40th anniversary, so it can all cross-promote each other and lead to some great success for the Zelda series and, of course, Nintendo. And so there have been some signs popping up that some people think is suggesting that Nintendo's ramping up their promotion for reasons. As @SkywardBound pointed out on Twitter, here they say, "Look what they posted on the news tab. Oh, that Zelda Direct is coming sooner than I could have imagined." So look at this image here. Yes, on the news tab, they are talking about the Zelda series overall, the three fates intertwined, courage, wisdom, power for Link, Zelda, Ganondorf. As you see here, they kind of talk a little bit about that stuff, and then also they are promoting the Ocarina of Time remake, which, as we know, for the story of Ocarina of Time, the story of the Triforce and the three different pieces to the Triforce, courage, wisdom, and power, is a really, really big important plot point. So Nintendo pushing this and advertising this right now on the actual news page for the Switch itself could be a subtle indicator that Nintendo is trying to ramp up things here, because soon they'll have even bigger news about Zelda's 40th anniversary, which, yes, I absolutely think this is the case, and it's just kind of interesting to see little things like this, but there is more. So, Necrofelipe from Universal Nintendo recently discovered that Nintendo has filed for a trademark in Madrid for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And also, Mike Odyssey recently noticed one for The Legend of Zelda in the United States, likely having to do with the movie. And so we're just seeing more ratings and trademarks coming out for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Nintendo clearly is doing a lot of prep work here for a big push for the Zelda series. And after the recent leaks that we talked about a few days ago, a lot of people have been speculating that there could be a Direct happening really soon. Speculating, not leaking. Let's make that clear here. Here, Reese Kiwi Talks Riley says, calling it Zelda Direct next week with Ocarina of Time release date and Zelda movie trailer. He said this a few days ago. Some people might misconstrue Kiwi's words here to think that he's actually leaking something, because he does talk to a lot of developers with these different interviews. He has heard things quite accurately many times, but he is not indicating here that this is a leak. This is simply speculation by him, and maybe he's right, maybe he's not. He's not saying it's a leak though or something gets heard, it's just something he's speculating. We'll see. But Mike Odyssey also says that he can sense it, it approaches. This is also not necessarily a leak either, but it does seem like a lot of people are sort of thinking this. Another person, Switchforce, is calling it that within 2 weeks they're going to be seeing something big about a Nintendo Direct and Zelda, and perhaps there is something to all these beliefs here that there is going to be something soon. With all these leaks that are happening, we just talked about several different leaks coming out for the Zelda movie where we learned about all these different prominent, successful, quality actors in the movie. And then we also got these recent image leaks for a Zelda-themed Switch 2 Pro controller and a Zelda-themed Switch 2 console. It looks like things are tearing at the seams here. There's so much stuff for Zelda's 40th anniversary, and Nintendo's been taking their time to talk about it, so much so that a lot of it is just getting out there. Now, my personal take on the matter is that we have the network test for the Dust Bloods happening next week. Historically speaking, we've seen most Nintendo Directs happen in September, and if Nintendo is going to be essentially trying to copy what they did last year with Mario's 40th anniversary, that might suggest a big combo direct where half of it is about Zelda's 40th anniversary and the other half is about other things. Now, I have speculated before that perhaps waiting all the way until September wouldn't be the best thing to do in terms of promoting the Ocarina of Time remake. It's going to be the most important game for Nintendo's holidays, and waiting until September to start telling us more might be quite a short turnaround. And if they're going to be showcasing this big game alongside other announcements and also showing off the movie at the same time and then just other stuff outside of Zelda, that seems like a lot to show off all at one point. So I have thought that maybe they would want to spread things out a little bit, maybe give us a little bit more about Ocarina of Time in this month of August, and that way in September they can talk about more 40th anniversary stuff and also have these different events where people can play Ocarina of Time, and there'll be a slightly longer window to promote the game. That's what I've kind of thought has made the most sense, but now that we're in the thick of August, I am growing more and more skeptical that's going to happen. There is a rumor that's come from Nash Weedle, who has gotten many things right about Nintendo, not everything, but he has said that he's heard from a source he's confident in they won't be seeing Ocarina of Time until September. Which, you know, considering the history of things and how Nintendo usually delivers information, we usually have to wait until September after the big reveals in June. Some people think, though, because of all these leaks, Nintendo might be responsive and do something about this, but I remember, we go back to 2023, the Tears of the Kingdom OLED and Switch Pro controller had leaked well in advance, months in advance, and they were not officially announced until like 6 weeks or so before the game was actually coming out. There was actually a pretty short turnaround there. So with that in mind, I don't think Nintendo's going to be responsible with these leaks either. And I also think that they can probably get away with announcing all this stuff officially and putting up pre-orders in September for a release in November. Over the last few years, it looks like Nintendo's gone more and more comfortable with having these extremely short turnarounds, even for substantial releases. Going back to 2023, I remember a lot of people were getting really uncomfortable with how little Nintendo was saying about Tears of the Kingdom, this giant Zelda game we had been waiting years for. The game was only a couple months before release before Nintendo actually started talking about the game and promoting it to some sort of significant capacity. I can see things playing out in a very similar way this time around as well. We're already midway through August, so it's really not that far off by this point. It could be an early September thing. I would say we're probably less than a month away from getting the big Zelda 40th anniversary blowout for sure, but expecting it in August, I mean, I'm not expecting it. I hope it happens, but I'm not expecting it. We've seen Nintendo not worry too much about certain leaks when it comes to controller stuff and console stuff, at least in terms of special edition things, and they'll wait until less than 2 months away before they start talking about all these different things. But we have gotten a little bit more information about these 40th anniversary leaks here. So there is a user who has apparently been leaking this information, who has the actual boxes. As you take a look here, it's this user right here, XX_750,000. It's a Japanese user, and they've apparently had access to this stuff from a warehouse. And so here's a closer up look of that Zelda-themed Switch 2 Pro controller. And this just looks beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love how it looks. Like, it even looks like the triangles are a little bit rugged in parts, which is interesting. I wonder if that just has to do with just the box or the photo there. You can see like the gold accent, the green accent. I really want this controller, actually. I think it looks very cool, and we've seen other parts to it too that I'm going to show off in a moment here. but there's a look at the logo at a higher resolution, because we talked about this stuff a few days ago, but now this is a better quality imagery here. We're getting a much better look at how this is going to appear. Also notice the symbol back here as well. Yeah, I think this is worth pointing out, and you'll see why in a moment. But also here is that image that we were talking about. We'll talk about this other hidden thing here, something else that Nintendo has not announced yet, or we haven't learned about. They haven't even announced this stuff yet, but we had at least heard about the rumors of this. It was leaked by Special Nick and others. But here we can see the back of the controller. We see the little Link, and he's shooting a little sword laser there, which is very cool. And here we actually see some renders that were made from this stuff, so you can get a much better look of how it'll appear. I think some AI was used for this, so if you look at, for example, the Triforce symbol, you can see that it doesn't really match the normal symbols anymore. You see that. So keep in mind that this is not perfect as for the way it's going to look, but it gives us a pretty close approximation, and it does look really good. But we also get a nice look at the back this way, and we can just see Link shooting the laser. And I think this is really cool, the little sword beam thing. But it does get me thinking, with Zelda's 40th anniversary, yes, they're going to have a big focus on Ocarina of Time. There's going to be a focus on the movie at some point this year. For sure, there's going to be a lot of marketing for both of those things. But like Mario's 40th anniversary, we had like that logo, and we would see like the classic Mario. It looks like they're going to do something very similar for Link as well. And if they're going to be featuring that, celebrating the history of Zelda, I think maybe we should be thinking about other Zelda things that could show up in this presentation. I've mentioned it before, but maybe like a Zelda 99, or what if they decide to release a fully featured version of that Breath of the Wild prototype where it was in the style of 8-bit Zelda, but with a lot of Breath of the Wild mechanics. They used that to test around the mechanics on a 2D scale. What if they turned that into some kind of game, like a quick release but a really fun, cool one? There's potential to do something along these lines to celebrate the initial Link from the initial Zelda, 8-bit Zelda there, and just kind of seeing this little logo here, this cool little logo they've made for the Zelda series. It does get me hopeful that there's a little bit more than just Ocarina of Time and the movie, even though those two things are huge things. I just think there's going to be a little bit more if Nintendo is going to be putting together a presentation like this, very similar to Mario, where there's several things coming out over like a half-year span or more. I think we should be considering those possibilities as well. I've mentioned how, for example, with Mario's 40th anniversary, the Star Fox release was kind of like that last release that was taking advantage of all the cross-promotional stuff with the movie and such. And that was a surprise thing that happened after the release of the movie. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the Zelda 40th anniversary direct, and we do have multiple announcements, but there will be one more that comes out afterwards. My theory has been a new 2D Zelda, like a new 2D Zelda adventure. I think that's something they could announce after the movie comes out next year, as the Zelda release for 2027, the game release. And that would work well, because right now the focus is on the Ocarina of Time remake, and if we're talking about two different big Zelda adventures in one presentation, they may take away a little bit from each other. So waiting to announce a 2D Zelda until next year, once people have been playing the Ocarina of Time remake for about 6 months or so, I think that would make a lot of sense. But also, here's a close-up look at the logo for Zelda's 40th anniversary, where we have the 8-bit Link there. It's cool to see Nintendo celebrate Zelda very similar to the way they've been celebrating Mario, which is in a really, really big way. But also, this is what appears to be another AI recreation, but it gives us a much better look at how the Zelda-themed dock and Switch 2 console are going to look. So don't pay attention to the really fine details here, because clearly the symbols are messed up with the Triforce. But this gives us a good understanding of how it's going to look with the greens, with the accents. It looks great. It's exciting. I think this is really cool, and I think for those who haven't picked up a Switch 2 yet, who pick up this version, they're going to be very happy about it. It does make me wonder if I should have waited. Of course, I would never have done that, because I was going to pick up my Switch 2 day one no matter what. But as I brought up earlier, there's something else supposedly that hasn't been shown off yet, that hasn't been leaked, that will be another physical thing, another peripheral as part of Zelda's 40th anniversary. We have the Zelda-themed Switch 2 console. We have the Pro Controller, and this is being censored out here. What could it be? My first thought is some sort of really cool amiibo having to do with Ocarina of Time. That would be exciting. And maybe the reason why it's being censored is because that's showcasing actual visual details of Ocarina of Time itself, the game, this new version of it, and that might get Nintendo so mad that they would start really freaking out about these leaks here, because you may have noticed a lot of people have been talking about this controller, this console, and Nintendo hasn't been freaking out that much about it, at least not publicly. But if there's an amiibo that's being censored right now that showcases like how Link looks with his full design, and that actually is like telling us more about how Link is going to look in the actual game here, that would be a pretty substantial leak for the game, and that's where Nintendo may step in and start really getting aggressive here, and so perhaps that's why they're being careful about this stuff. Could be that. Now, something else I'm going to consider here, as we see there are some folded boxes here for the controller. Maybe this is another folded box we haven't seen yet. It was indicated that this was something else, not the console, so if it ends up just being the console, okay. But the suggestion is that it's something else. So what else could it be if it's not like an amiibo? They would have a folded up box like what we're seeing here for the Pro Controller. Assuming there's not some weird mistake here and it's not just the console itself that's folded up here. I mean, the console would actually be pretty big, now that I think about it, in comparison to the box for the controller. And while this black box is certainly bigger, it's only a little bit bigger. And if we were looking at just like a flattened up version of the box for the console, this little box probably wouldn't be enough to cover it up. So this does definitely have me thinking something smaller, something amiibo sized does make sense. What it could be, maybe it could be a box for the Joy-Cons, like separately, so that way you don't have to buy the whole Switch 2 console if you want the Zelda Joy-Cons. Honestly, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Having Zelda 40th Anniversary Joy-Cons to be sold separately, a Pro Controller to be sold separately, and then if you just buy the whole thing, there you go. I actually would really like it if they release the dock to be purchased separately and the Joy-Cons to be purchased separately. That way, if you want to get that stuff but already have a Switch 2, you can. But what do you all think? What do you think this censored image could be for? What else is Nintendo hiding about Zelda's 40th anniversary? And do you think a Zelda 40th anniversary related Nintendo Direct could be happening in the month of August? Or should we be waiting until September, as we usually do? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.